Hello friends, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, the irrepressible, apparently not flammable Shanghai Pete. Things are no longer on fire here in the quite scorched City of Angels, Los Angeles, which means we are miraculously live and live. I know last time I promised it wouldn't be a month between my uploads anymore, but that was before my entire city caught fire, so fortunately I'm too poor to live anywhere that burned down, so Degreelessness HQ was in fact spared the wrath of climate change, space lasers, whatever the kids are calling it these days, but regrettably I did know a bunch of people that were affected directly or otherwise, so our humble little loft became a refugee center of sorts for most of the previous month. Things are back to normal now though, more or less, so y'all know what that means, right? That's right, it's time to get deep inside, and while we're getting inside, if you like the content and want to help us out, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're feeling really especially crazy, tip us on Patreon or become a member of the channel. Links are down below. Now I know I normally never say any of that kind of stuff, but I think like almost 4 years of not saying anything is long enough, so we're gonna try out something different for a minute and see if that helps. If it's really bothering some of you, let me know in the comments down below and, well, We'll consider altering policy if enough people hate it. Anyway, let us start off with a quick recap of the week, a week in which many things of some type did indeed occur. First, let's get this one out of the way as it's one of the biggest bits of news of the past few months. Nintendo did the most Nintendo thing imaginable and both simultaneously announced and did not really announce the official successor to their extremely lucrative Switch console, aptly named the Switch 2. Now, as some of you may know, I was a very strong proponent for the moniker Super Nintendo Switch, or Nintendo Super Switch maybe, and thus find myself appropriately disappointed. But in fairness, Switch 2 is probably, I guess, the safest route for them to go, so I guess I can't really begrudge them that. After all, none of us want a Wii U situation again, now do we? Names notwithstanding, the Switch 2 was indeed announced, but like I said, it also kinda wasn't really, thanks of course to Nintendo continuing to insist on being Nintendo, meaning all the info you'd expect from a new console unveiling, specs, games, literally any information at all, was conspicuously absent. The only thing we actually got was a look at the thing and a name, both of which, thanks to copious leaks, we kinda had already for like weeks. So to say the Switch 2 announcement was a bit anticlimactic would indeed be a rather severe understatement. What we got instead of anything really concrete was a date. Not a date that the system would be released or when a certain game would be available, no. Instead, they gave us a date when they would deign to finally show us some goddamn games. That date being April 2nd, more than 2 months away. God, I hate you, Nintendo. Why you always gotta be so difficult? I just wanna play more Mario. In other news, Ubisoft finally pulled the curtain off the latest upcoming Assassin's Creed installment, Shadows, and not only was it apparently less than spectacular, but also no one really cared. Uh-oh, truly shocking stuff, Ubisoft. If you don't get bought out in the next couple months, I'll eat my hat. Well, I don't really have a hat, but if that does not happen, I will find a hat and attempt to eat it, perhaps. I truly think that this has got to be the end times for them. Just how long can they continue doing business as usual without releasing even a decent game? Something tells me we're going to find out. Moving on, also this week, it looks like another one of my predictions is coming true. The inevitable death of BioWare. Now, some people think I'm jumping the gun on this, and honestly, I hope I am. I don't want BioWare to go anywhere. I just want them to go back to making good games. Sadly, I do think that's a bit too much to hope for at this point. The new Dragon Age bombed just like I said it would, and now EA is currently in the process of gutting BioWare, just like I said it would. And though they insist they're still making Mass Effect 5, there's not really any institutional knowledge left there, at least enough to give that game even a snowball's chance in hell of being good, which ultimately would leave BioWare ending up as a studio in name only, again, just like I said it would. Also this week we finally got a full preview of Doom the Dark Ages, and let me just say, it looks awesome. Doom fans, it remains to be seen until the game's out of course, but certainly looks like it has delivered once again. Mark this down as my likely personal game of the year unless Nintendo does something fucking insane with a new Mario game. And lastly, but certainly not least, the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, affectionately known as Metal Gear Solid Delta, accidentally leaked its own release date on an accidentally uploaded trailer on PS5 dashboards everywhere. Like the next Doom game or any game really, it does remain to be seen if this will be any good or merely yet another vehicle used to drive fans everywhere to self-harm. While I'm goth enough to like a little cutting here and there, I think I'd prefer this to just, be good. I don't know. We'll find out for sure on August 28th. Next up, for our main story tonight, we have a report from the front lines of the battle for game console supremacy. The war is over. Guys, this is bad. The details of this particular missive, the fallout from which seems to have caused everyone to come to the consensus that the console wars have ended, concern Microsoft announcing that Xbox exclusivity on the Forza franchise has come to an end. More specifically, Forza Horizon 5 coming soon to a PlayStation 5 near you. And also likely a Switch 2, but we probably won't find that out until goddamn April. Thanks again, Nintendo. A number of outlets have done write-ups on this, so let's take a look. From their illustrious bougie offices looming far above us peasants in the gleaming white tower of peerless journalism, Kotaku brings us this. Appropriately titled, "The Console Wars Are Over, and Nobody Really Won." Subhead: Nintendo moved on, Xbox gave up, and Sony is left fighting no one. Right off the bat, I think that's all pretty accurate, although if Nintendo moved on and Xbox gave up, wouldn't that mean Sony won? I don't know. This is by someone named Zach Zweisen. Never heard of him. But nonetheless, I think it's an interesting article, so onward we go. For decades, a war has been raging online and in stores. A fight between massive corporations trying to sell you plastic boxes. Again, we'll pause here. Is it just me, or is that a little bit more consumer-facing language than Kotaku would normally use? A fight between massive corporations trying to sell you big plastic boxes? That sounds more like the way I would phrase it than Kotaku, but hey, maybe they're learning. That's good. I will take it. Anyway, a fight between massive corporations trying to sell you plastic boxes that play games and their weirdly dedicated supporters. Weirdly dedicated supporters is right. The fight was always silly. Now, hold on a second. Anybody who lived through Nintendo versus Sega in the early and mid 90s knows that the fight was not silly. It was very serious. It was very real. And my house will always be a Nintendo house, first and foremost. Just saying. Anyway, the fight was always silly, but very real and expensive, involving massive companies spending hundreds of millions of dollars on marketing, game development, and hardware. And for a long time, it seemed like the console wars would continue forever. But that's not what happened. Indeed not. The conflict has ended. In 2025, this foul year of our Lord, it's all over. You might have missed that because it didn't end in a spectacular victory, or spectacular loss for that matter. Instead, the console wars have fizzled out for various reasons. Yeah, I'd say that's probably the most accurate way to phrase it. On January 30th, Xbox announced plans to bring Forza Horizon 5 to the PlayStation 5. In doing so, the company essentially gave up one of its biggest console-exclusive franchises to Sony and its PlayStation, and possibly Nintendo. This is really strange considering that at one point in time, Sony was Xbox's bitter competitor. Next section, entitled Xbox Dips Out of the Console War. Internally, before its 2001 launch, the original Xbox was referred to as Project Midway. This was a crass reference to World War II's Battle of Midway. During that battle, American forces decisively defeated Japan's navy. I'm not sure if it was that battle or another one, but at one point, we were owning Japan so badly that we had a battleship in the region solely for the purposes of making ice cream. That's how much we were dominating, which, USA #1, that's pretty cool. Anyway, the name clearly indicated that Microsoft wanted to enter into a video game console war with Nintendo and Sony, and it wanted to win. And for years, Xbox, Sony, and Nintendo battled each other. Now, for any of you who've been watching the channel for a while, I posted an anecdotal video maybe a couple weeks ago, something like that, about my time managing a GameStop. And during that time, I interacted a lot with the Xbox, Sony, and Nintendo reps. This was actually right around the time the Xbox came out, like 2005, 2006, stuff like that. And let me tell you, where they say here that Xbox definitely wanted to win, that is 100% true. Xbox reps always cared way more than Nintendo and Sony guys. Sony guys were more like high school date rapists in polo shirts and khaki pants that didn't so much care about the products they were trying to sell you. as much as they cared about, like, I guess trying to look cool. Nintendo guys, they were all very nice, but they never knew what the fuck they were doing. And Microsoft people were always all business. They were handing out swag, gear, free copies of stuff. They were very, very on point. They really wanted to win, or at least their superiors had issued instructions to that effect. But I digress. One would lower its price, another would launch a new bundle, one would give away free games to subscribers, another would follow suit. Motion controls were copied, exclusives were secured. It was a very expensive war that had millions of kids around the world bickering on playgrounds over which was better, as teens and adults did the same on internet forums. Now, stop for a minute and just think about that for a second. Sounds like a pretty good deal for consumers now, doesn't it? And that, boys and girls, is why monopolies are bad, which is going to be a theme of the rest of this video. This is why competition is good, because you have companies constantly fighting themselves to get your business. That's what we want. Okay, just keep that in mind as we move forward. But now, in 2025, Microsoft was willing to give away one of its crown jewels, Forza. I don't know, is Forza really a crown jewel? Maybe I just didn't play it because it's not really my type of thing. People weigh in the comments. Do you think Forza was a crown jewel? Anyway, Microsoft was willing to give away one of its crown jewels, Forza, to Sony and PlayStation. It's part of a trend of Xbox making more of its games multi-platform following its purchase of Activision. And rumors are swirling that even more Xbox games and franchises will make the leap to PlayStation and Switch. The Master Chief Collection is likely to arrive on other platforms sooner rather than later, according to insiders, as is rumored but unconfirmed, the Gears of War Trilogy Collection. Insiders are also claiming that Fable and Starfield will be making the leap to PlayStation 5 and Switch too. Y'all can keep Fable and Starfield as far as I'm concerned, but Master Chief Collection and Gears of War on Switch? Yes, please. Combine that shift in Xbox's strategy with Game Pass being available on more devices and the company downplaying console sales for years and years now, and it becomes clear that Microsoft is not really fighting in the console war anymore. It arguably hasn't been for years now, and that's something I would agree with. That's actually one of my main disagreements with the whole framing of this piece, is like, y'all are saying that only now Microsoft is giving up? I would say the moment that they started making the Xbox look like a fridge and giving it 18 different names, none of which made any sense at all, I'd say that was more around the time that they started giving up, but again, sorry, I digress. It arguably hasn't been for years now, but the news of Forza jumping ship should be the confirmation that it's flown the white flag and decided to become a massive publisher, harnessing the combined power of Game Pass, all of its studios, and Activision/Blizzard. It is a strategy that is already paying off too. So if Xbox is done fighting, who is left? Well, not Nintendo. Again, absolutely true, kind of an understatement. Next section entitled, Nintendo isn't fighting in the war anymore. Yes, the company is releasing a Switch 2 and it's going to sell incredibly well. It's probably true, assuming tariffs do not inflate the price too much, but in 2025, Nintendo does not care about the console war. I would say in 2006, Nintendo didn't care about the console war, but the Wii U was the last time the company behind Mario arguably tried to compete directly with Sony and Microsoft. It released the Wii U in late 2013, just within a year of Xbox One and PS4, while trying to court third-party AAA franchises like Mass Effect, Call of Duty, and the Batman Arkham games. I mean, releasing the Wii U with its tablet within a year of Xbox and PlayStation's offerings, is that really competing? The Wii U ultimately was a failure for Nintendo, and in 2017 it released the Switch, nearly 3 years before Sony and Xbox's next consoles. The Xbox Series X/S and the PS5 would arrive. Nintendo realized that it could do its own thing. It didn't need to stick to the hardware cycle of the old console wars, competing directly with other companies every 5 to 7 years. Instead, Nintendo focused on giving fans what they always wanted, a hybrid device merging its portable and home consoles into one, and found incredible success. Again, I don't think that can really be debated. My only point really is that, like, I think, well, maybe you can say they are testing the waters with the first Wii, and it was the Wii U that really confirmed it for them. But then you could, I suppose there's also an argument that could be made that the GameCube was the last time they really tried to compete. But on the other hand, you could say the GameCube wasn't really a direct competitor either. I don't know. The Switch 2 launching later this year continues to show that Nintendo does not care about the console war. It's not concerned about when the PS6 or the next Xbox arrive. That doesn't matter. All it has to do is make a new console that people want every several years and make sure it keeps turning out stellar first-party games for the machine. It can focus on itself and not worry about matching GPUs or teraflops with Sony or Xbox in some never-ending console war. And as long as it sells well, third-party publishers and devs will show up with games, even if it means cutting them up and squishing them just to make stuff like Harry Potter or Batman or Doom Eternal, for that matter, work on the Switch's hardware. So if Nintendo is out and Xbox isn't fighting anymore, then that just leaves Sony. And yeah, I think you can argue that Sony and PlayStation are still fighting the war. But if everyone else has left or given up, is it even a war anymore? I mean, no. That's the immediate answer to that question. But also, yeah, well, we'll save this for later. So, Sony is the last soldier fighting. Sony is still spending a lot of money to secure exclusive games like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, we all know how valuable that is, and Death Stranding 2. And unlike Xbox, it's not publishing its big first-party games day one on PC or including them in its subscription services, PS Plus, at launch. It also spent millions of dollars developing a new mid-generation console, the PS5 Pro, which is... I don't know, that never made sense to me, but Kotaku here says it makes sense if your competitors are doing the same and you want to keep up with them. However, in 2025, the PS5 Pro feels like Sony firing a very pricey missile into an empty patch of ground. Yeah, I'd say that's probably pretty accurate. Maybe once upon a time there were tanks and jeeps in that spot. Not anymore, though. Everyone else has moved on. Yeah, I always thought that was a bizarre move. In a technical sense, Sony has won the console wars because it's A, still here, and B, the last one fighting. Though it's an odd, hollow victory. I mean, just because they're still fighting, does that mean they're winning? Wouldn't it be more... I don't know, I guess if they're still competing in a war that's no longer being fought, and Nintendo is still kind of doing the same thing, but winning independently, wouldn't that kind of make Nintendo the winner? I don't know, it doesn't matter. While Sony was fighting the old school console war, holding onto exclusive games tightly and trying to win people over with bigger, more expensive consoles, Xbox went and became one of the biggest third-party game publishers in the world, making millions of dollars via games sold on PlayStation consoles. Very smart. And Nintendo has been outselling everyone by simply doing its own thing and not engaging in the war. Wouldn't that also kind of be winning? I don't know. Again, it doesn't matter. Meanwhile, free-to-play games on phones are making more than all of them on devices that have never been connected to the console wars. 2025 might not be the precise year the console war ended, yeah, as it likely ended years ago, and what we see now are small skirmishes slowly wrapping up as news reaches each front, conflict still puttering on through the struggle that once set it all in motion is largely resolved. I'm confident that even if more consoles are released in the future, which they will be, the era of 3 or more companies spending millions each month to fight each other in multiple ways as synchronized hardware cycles stretch across years is over. Alright, so first of all, I think that's all more or less very true. I mean, to TLDR it a bit, I guess. Xbox doesn't give a fuck. They have their own ways of making money. Nintendo doesn't give a fuck. They have their own ways of making any money. So what is Sony doing? Like, do you think the PS6 they're still gonna try to sell it with like how many teraflops and CPU cycles or whatever it has? I feel like they will, just because it seems like they don't know how to do anything else. But all of that is secondary. The real point here is that this is very bad. Competition in markets is what, 1, drives innovation, and 2, what makes things more affordable and better for customers. Without this competition, I mean, it seems weird to say it, but Sony, Xbox, and Nintendo now effectively have a monopoly on each of their little sections of the market, and I don't think that's good for anybody. Are they all gonna sit there and be content to stagnate? No, I don't think so, but the eras of price matching or trying to outcompete each other, that's probably gone, and I think that's a very bad thing. Instead, we're gonna see more and more shit like, oh, somebody on Steam got away with selling a game for $80. Let's try that too, because there's no one selling a game for $60 to try to compete with them. Shit like that. Anyways, we love you today. We love you all the way. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Let us know down in the comments what you think. Are you glad the console wars is over? Do you not agree? Do you think they're still going on? Do you think monopolies are good? Or do you agree with me and think that they are bad? Let us know in the comments down below, and remember to like, comment, and subscribe, because shit, somebody needs to shill for customers these days, and I, Shanghai Pete, your boy, am happy to do it.
Woke up, smoke up, blunt, then I pass out. Pass out. Woke up, what up, smoke up, blunt, then I'm back down. Back down. What? Woke up, smoke up, blunt, then I pass out. Pass out. Woke up, what up, smoke up, blunt.